Tiffany, and today I'm going to be talking with Frank from Home Run History over on Instagram for episode 3 of my teacher interview series. Today we talked about a lot of things. We talked about what it's like to move to a different state as a new teacher to take a teaching job, his experience in Virginia, and then also what is coming up next for him. So I hope that you guys enjoy this. With Frank from Home Run History over on Instagram.
Hey Tiffany, how are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you about teaching history and your move and the move you're about to make and getting your master's. So yeah, I'm excited you're here.
I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So what state did you teach in this last year?
This last year, for the last 2 years, I've taught in Virginia.
What grades did you teach while you were there?
The last year I taught, actually both years I taught 9 through 12. All of our history classes can branch across all 4 grades depending on what classes the kids need, what tests they need to pass. So I get a little bit of everything.
Do you see like a big difference when you're with freshmen or seniors? Do you feel the big difference?
Yes.
Yeah.
Freshmen, especially here, are very immature to say the least, but it's fun to see them grow, especially having them from 9th grade to 10th grade. It's nice to see them start to grow up a bit and they really start to appreciate things a little more.
Since you taught across so many grade levels, did you have one focus area in history or multiple?
I've had the 3 major ones that our school has. So all of last year I taught World History 1. So it's like what your YouTube series is on. So we started, back at, prehistoric times, going all the way up to the Renaissance. I taught all of that last year, and this year I transitioned to World History 2. So we picked up at the Renaissance and we moved all the way up to, modern world history. And I also got to teach United States history.
Oh, that's nice. Those are 2 really good ones, and they can probably connect together.
Yes.
More.
Yeah, it's fun to start connecting with the kids, especially when you have the same kids last year in World 1, and then you get to teach them in World 2.
So did you, with those courses, the World History 1, 2, and US, did you have standards that you had to follow?
Yes. For the state of Virginia, we have something called the SOL standards, the Standards of Learning. And they basically put your whole curriculum in this framework, and you only have, the semester to teach it. Right. And then at the end of the semester, we have the big state test. And Virginia, especially the school that I'm at, is extremely high stakes for the testing. And so the standards are a great thing because it gives you what you need to follow along, but it's such a pain because that test is so intimidating for a lot of the kids.
Do all 3 of those content areas have testing?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so the students need, if they're on a regular diploma, they only need 1 history test to pass. If they're on the advanced diploma, they have to pass at least 2.
I don't know if I've talked to anybody that has that much testing in history at the high school level. That's a lot.
Yeah, our testing schedule is crazy.
Yeah. When
it comes time to test.
So you said that you did kind of like the standards. If you didn't have that state testing at the end, would you still like having the standards that you had?
I would. It helped me a lot last year. When I was hired, because I just got out of school, I graduated December of 2014. And I subbed for a little bit, and then I moved down here to get my first job. And when the principal hired me, he told me I was teaching U.S. history. Right. Which is my specialty, my passion area. But they had a mix-up with one of the other teachers, and she didn't want to give up U.S., so I got stuck with World History 1. And my World History 1 knowledge was not where it needed to be to teach children. So, yeah, the standards were great to give me a guide to go off of and to really make sure that I hit everything that they needed, but even without the test, it's nice to have something, and then, you could expand where your interests are and, build off it a little bit.
So what is one area that you feel like you really shined and you just kind of, my one glow? What was your one glow from this past year?
So my glow from this past year, I would say, is classroom management. Last year, being a first-year teacher, I wasn't bad at it, but there were so many things looking back that I knew I could have done a little better. As far as, setting the tone on discipline, and also teaching some of the same kids this year gave me a chance to build that rapport a little more. So by the time they got into my class this year, they knew what to expect. they know, I don't want to say they can get away with a little bit, but they kind of knew when it was time to buckle down.
I've never moved with kids before, so it's interesting to hear you talk about kind of the pros with that. Were there any bad things about having the same kids again?
Yes. Couple kids in general, not to name any names, but
right.
the ones that gave me nightmares last year provided some of the same nightmares this year.
It's not funny, but I understand.
Oh, trust me, it was a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But it gives you a better chance to get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
And, I approach every discipline problem with the philosophy that, what did I do to make that student uncomfortable in my class? If that's why they acted out, they could just be, acting out because that's what they've always done. But, I tried to figure out, could I have done anything better? Could I have handled anything differently? Give them a chance, talk to them a little more, be like, hey, what's going on? Why did you do that? Instead of just saying, out, I don't have time, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
It was a part that I grew a lot, and I definitely saw some student improvement from that. And that's what the school tells us to do too, because of the testing.
Yep.
They'll say, and I feel like I'm talking a lot about the testing, but our school, that's our entire focus.
It's really interesting how much testing impacted you, because I kind of felt it too. The way that pretty much guides every decision that you make.
Yes.
For the focus area, either with the world history or with the U.S., what are some challenges that you had with those areas?
My major challenge last year was just getting a couple steps ahead of the students, especially with the world history, the ancient world history that I wasn't as well versed in, and being a first-year teacher. So you're dealing with your own class for the first time. You're all on your own. Your student teacher, your co-op's not there to help you out, and just getting everything into my head well enough to be able to relay that to them, which I think I did pretty well, but it caused a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of long days.
Did you have a mentor in your building, or did you, once you were in for your first year teaching, they were like, all right, good luck?
Yeah, we had mentors assigned to us. Mine was my department head, and the school that I teach in is extremely small. We have 3 social studies teachers. There's 258 kids in the whole high school. I was fortunate enough to have a very good department, but both of those teachers, it was only their second year. So the oldest person in the department was 27 years old. Yeah. So we didn't have that huge the old wise person to go to with all the all the tips and tricks.
You were missing your Yoda. You didn't have
I know.
Yoda.
I needed one.
But it's good when you have a good department, though, because my first year, I know mine was I always had good teachers that I worked with, but it was kind of split 50-50 with teaching styles. So sometimes that was a challenge. So it's good that you had a supportive department.
Yeah. We helped each other out a lot, bounced a lot of ideas off of each other. The teaching styles, it's funny you mentioned that came into play a little bit right at the beginning. All new teachers had to do a lesson in front of the entire staff, the principal, the assistant principal, which at this school is only like 35 people, but still, it's your third day in the building and you're presenting in front of everybody. And I gave this really good presentation, and it was about the difference between BCE and BC and AD and CE and all that. And people said it was great and all this stuff. And then my department head wasn't a fan because she thought it wouldn't fit the way they taught. And the way she was taught from the person that I replaced, they just brought up the curriculum framework and taught straight off of that. So no PowerPoints, no not a lot of extra things.
Right.
Just textbook teaching to the test.
Right.
And I didn't vibe too well with that because, if it's going to bore me, what do you expect, 14 and 15-year-olds to do?
Sleep. They'll sleep.
Exactly.
They will, or ask to go to the bathroom. One of those two things will happen.
12 times a day. So, once we got through that, it was great. And, we had a successful year, so it all worked out in the end. But there were some times where, the teaching styles clashed a little bit.
So For someone who's about to take on either ancient world, modern world, US, what is a tip that you would give for them if they've never taught, or maybe even like you or me, never even studied that area?
Right. My tip would just be, ask questions to your coworkers, anybody. Instagram's a wonderful community to bounce ideas off people. Make yourself comfortable with your material. Make sure you're pacing yourself and you're covering everything you need to.
Asking questions is a huge one because I know my first year I felt like it was almost on this line. Like if I ask a question, are they going to think that I don't know my stuff? But if I don't ask the question, will they get upset if I do it wrong? So
Yeah,
that's hard.
yeah. And then I ran into the opposite problem this year with U.S. history because that's my area and the kids know that's my area.
Right.
So we had one or two kids that would intentionally try to stump me, and they would come in with things, and which they got me a couple times, but it started to get so obscure that you're just like, I don't know, just tell me what the answer is.
I had a kid come in one time that got mad because he saw an ancient world question on Jeopardy, and I didn't teach that. And I was like, do you know how specific those Jeopardy questions are? Like,
exactly.
How would I know that?
Yeah, they're stumping geniuses.
So when you were teaching in Virginia, but you're not actually from there. So where are you actually from?
Well, I was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I went to college about 2 hours north of Pittsburgh, a little place called Slippery Rock University. Some people know it, most people don't, but it had the teaching college reputation. Started as a teaching school, so they pump out tons of teachers. And then those teachers flood Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, because there are no jobs in Pennsylvania. It's very, very tough to find them, especially social studies.
It seems like once people get history jobs, they stay there until they cannot go to work anymore. Like they do not leave.
So they can't physically
get up. They are not leaving those jobs.
Yeah, and that's what happens in Pennsylvania. They pay their teachers extremely well. They have one of the better teachers unions. So, when you're teaching in a Pennsylvania high school for, 25, 30 years, you're inching towards six figures.
Right.
So schools run into the problem of not being able to replace teachers.
So Virginia, did you pick that specifically, or was that just like the one that opened up for you?
When we started getting closer to graduation, and we kind of knew it all along, they tell you going into the education program that, hey, you're going to be a teacher and you're in a state where there's not a lot of teaching jobs.
Right.
So unless you know somebody or unless you get lucky, you're going to have to move somewhere. And so we would have a lot of people recruit at Slippery Rock from, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Nevada, Arizona, some of the places that really need teachers. And so I figured I would have to end up in either Virginia or North Carolina. And when I was substitute teaching, I got on teachersteachers.com and just applied to everything I could find in Virginia and North Carolina.
You did your student teaching up near Pittsburgh, and then you taught in Virginia. So even though you didn't technically take a teaching job up there, comparing and contrasting what you know about the two, how was Virginia teaching there as a state for you?
For me, it was stressful. It was very stressful. My student teaching experience, my cooperating teacher basically said, okay, your first class is US 1. You're going to start at, colonial America, and you got to get to Reconstruction. How you choose to do that is up to you. Just, you got to cover all the major things, so you had a lot of freedom and a lot of creativity with how you could do that. And when I taught in Pennsylvania, we had periods, so we had 40-minute classes every day. And now I'm on a block schedule. So that was a big adjustment for me also. And working in the semesters is different. But just the way you could handle the curriculum in Pennsylvania, I felt was a lot better because we weren't teaching to that, specific history test where we're, killing and drilling up until the morning of the test. So it's a lot more, lets you be more creative.
That's nice. That's probably nice for the students.
Yeah.
Too.
Discussions are better. Lessons are better. In Virginia, you get squeezed so much with time and you can't really expand on a lot of topics. It's, here's what happened. Here's the major people. Here's why they did it. See you tomorrow.
And I know I've been talking a lot, and I've had a few conversations with you along the way, just like kind of about that books that talk about the historical process and doing those things. When you're teaching to a test, there's just not a lot of freedom for that.
Yeah, there's not much of a historical process at all. And, the kids know the objective too. And the kids here, especially in this school, when we have, because to meet accreditation, 70% of the kids have to pass the test. So when I'm only testing, I think last semester I had 33 students across 3 classes.
Right.
There's not a lot of room for error. And the students know that if they pass the test, we're not allowed to fail them in the class, which is awful for, accountability and responsibility. But you have the kids that are smart enough to come in on test day, get their 400 and be on their way.
Yep.
So when you try to go out of the box and do, writing assignments and discussions and things like that, you see a lot of blowback. It's something I did not, think about when I was coming here to teach, and something I didn't even, think about being a possibility, but we made it work.
This is kind of embarrassing, but when I got my first teaching job, I didn't even know that the grade I was teaching had state testing, because I didn't have state testing in history as a student. So
Yeah.
I
didn't have it either. That was news to me. And it's funny you said that, because in my interview, the principal that hired me, who's no longer there, he told me if you don't have 80% in the first semester, then you probably get replaced. Yeah, and so not only was I teaching a subject that I had not much experience in, and in a testing type environment that I had no experience in, it was really daunting to be placed with that, almost like an ultimatum. We have a higher graduation rate, but of our graduation rate, it's something like 45% go to college. Yeah, so we don't have a lot of motivation here.
And that testing makes it hard to kind of have that motivation to graduate or to go to college. And then when you do go to college, you're not pushed to take and pass a test anymore.
Right.
Not a real life skill after high school. My next question for you was going to be challenge that you faced personally or professionally by moving to a different state, but it sounds like professionally it was that testing.
Yeah, the testing was a shock. And like you said, I'm in the same boat. I didn't know that Virginia had the state tests that were specific to every subject and that were so much a part of the curriculum. So that was the professional challenge. Personally, me and my girlfriend have been together. It's 7 years this past April, and so we got together. It had been my freshman year of high school, or my freshman year of college. Excuse me. So we were together 3 years when I moved, and she was doing her master's program in Pittsburgh, so she couldn't come with me. So we did the distance thing for a couple of years, and we were fortunate enough to one, be able to handle it, and two, we were so busy with both of our programs that it didn't seem like, the time went by quick. Looking back these last 2 years, it's like a flash in a pan. And, we had the ability to mentally prepare ourselves for that, because, coming sophomore year in college, I knew for a fact I was going to have to move.
Right.
And by that point, things are serious. She had the idea of what she wanted to do and where she wanted to do it. I knew what I had to do, and we are moving back to Pennsylvania, so these 2 years are invaluable with experience, because I won't get a job up there with no experience.
And it's hard when you're a first-year teacher too, and then her being in her master's program. You both, you said, had so much to do.
Yeah.
Kind of having that space allowed you to do it. And I love that you guys were like, hey, you've got a goal, I've got a goal, let's get that done. I love that so much. So
yeah, it worked out really well. We're very thankful that it all worked out.
Now you get to go back, and it's exciting. I'm excited for you.
I am excited.
So just with moving, and now you've decided, and you kind of for personal reasons, but maybe for others also, you've decided to go back. What advice would you give a teacher who is about to switch states to take a teaching job?
My advice would be just make sure that you're prepared for it. And, my situation, I moved down here when I was 24. So I was a little older. I wasn't fresh out of college. But, it was my first time, one, living by myself in an apartment. And I'm, 8 hours away from anybody that I know. I moved down here. The only person I knew was the apartment manager that showed me around and gave me the keys,
Right.
until I started teaching. So, if you're not good at being alone, it could be tough. But once you do start getting into it, and as well as I do, when you're a first year teacher, your life just becomes the job, and so many things that you've never done before, all by yourself, and the planning that goes into it, and the execution, it takes over. So once you get past that initial, okay, here I am all by myself, what am I going to do? If you can get past that, then you'll be okay. But another thing too is, know your situation. Like I talked about with my girlfriend, we knew that this wouldn't be a deal breaker. We had the advantage of time to prepare ourselves, and it's not a decision that can really just be made on a whim.
So before you move back up north, you are teaching summer school. So can you tell us, how's it been so far? Are there any things that you would like to change about it, maybe?
Yeah, it's been okay. This is my first time teaching summer school. By this time last year, I had the opportunity to do it last year, and I did not, because I was so burnt out and just ready for summer that, even though I wanted the money and needed the money, I couldn't imagine, seeing another kid for, a couple months.
Just a break.
But yeah, so
Yep.
so this summer, with the move coming up, and I was a lot better this year as far as preparing, and just that 1 year of experience really helped me, avoid the teacher burnout and all of that stuff. So summer school here, and hate to go back to testing, but it's tutoring for the kids that pass the class but don't pass the state test. And our school, they tell us, if you have a kid that's close to passing the class but doesn't pass the test, bump them up a little bit. And a lot of that happens with students that are the ones that get the 20% and the 30% in class year after year. We have a couple of students that have taken and failed every history test 3 times, 4 times. And I've had grades overrided, students that I wanted to fail and keep for another semester that, magically show up in the next class the next year.
Right.
But, so some of that stuff's out of our hands, which I don't feel great about. But, this whole summer session is based around those students who have passed the class but failed the test. So, we come in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and we tutor, for 7 hours a day, which is wonderful. Kids love it.
Oh, yeah.
We'll tutor them for 2 hours in the morning, and then they take the test at 11, and, some will finish in 30 minutes and some will finish in 5 hours. So it's definitely an experience. It's something that I didn't, fully understand the idea behind until I got caught up in it. And it's completely free for the kids.
Right.
The school bus comes and gets them. They get breakfast, they get lunch. And, it's sad to say, but a lot of kids just show up for the meals. And because they have, nothing to do at home or nothing to do outside of school. So, you like that those kids come, but you have to try to get them on board with what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Which could be difficult.
Especially when you're just drilling in memorization.
Yeah.
Like there's not a lot. And some kids, I don't even know as a history teacher that I'm good at memorization. I don't feel like I'm good at that. So
yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Like skills in history all day. You want me to memorize like names and dates and battles? Like it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I'm with you. Summer school's been good for me because I'll find myself saying, okay, you have to remember, JFK with the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Bay of Pigs, and he was assassinated.
Right.
And you tell them 10 other things, and you move on to the next thing. And you're like, okay, why don't you remember that? And it's like, oh, okay, stupid, you wouldn't remember that either. So,
Yep.
Slow it down a bit, and, rework it. We start the day with a practice test and just go over some questions, and the board game Cram for the smart board. It's amazing.
And there's only so much you can do when you're doing test prep. Like there's really, there's no like investigate this and tell me what you think about it. This is how it is, and you need to remember that, and that's rough.
Right. Actually, this afternoon, we've been in the classroom Monday, Tuesday, 7 hours a day. Right. So this afternoon by like 1 o'clock, they're just done.
Done.
So
Yep.
we break out the basketball hoop and you answer a question, you get a shot. You make the shot, you get candy, something like that, just to try to get them off the beaten path of this is what you need to know for this guy in that place.
When do you finish summer school up?
Tomorrow is the testing day for the second session. So the first session I taught World History 1. This week I've been tutoring U.S. history.
Right.
So the students will test tomorrow. If they score between 375 and 399, they can come back Monday for 4 hours of tutoring, and then they can retake the test on Tuesday. So hopefully everyone passes tomorrow and I can be done. But I don't know if that's going to happen, so probably next Tuesday.
Okay. So then after that, a few days later, you're going to move. And then what are your plans for the fall?
So for the fall, I'm moving in with my girlfriend. She just got a new job. And I'm going to finally get my master's degree finished. So, yeah, we had a couple false starts. I got 2 classes out of the way when I first graduated. So while I was subbing, it was a lot easier because you just bring your laptop into class and, get stuff done while they're doing whatever. But when I came to Virginia to teach, I did 1 class, I think, the first semester. And then the second semester, I started coaching baseball, which, that's where the home run and home run history comes from because, I love baseball. And they needed a coach, and I shouldn't have done that, but I did it. And I'm extremely happy that I did, but I had to dump the 2 classes because, that was the second semester of my first year teaching. It was way too much. And so this coming year, it was the same thing. I was teaching 2 new classes, which I didn't anticipate the 2 preps. I knew I was going to be teaching U.S. this year, but I didn't know about World History 2 almost until I walked in the door for, the in-service days. They dropped that on me. So I had no preparation because I spent all summer getting everything lined up for U.S. history. So here I am, trying to still keep that together, but also this other class that I've never taught before that I knew a little better than World 1, but it was still a lot of, brushing up. And so the master's class didn't work with that. And I didn't plan on coaching baseball this year, but I ended up coaching baseball.
Right.
And
I even like a full-time job.
Yeah, it was nuts. We have another thing, thanks to testing, we had study halls for all sports.
Yep.
So after school, they have an hour and a half in study hall, and then we go and practice from 5 until 7. And after you make sure all the kids are home, I'm not walking in until 8:30. The classes didn't work out for that, so I'm really excited to jump back in. And it's nice that my girlfriend has a job that'll be good enough to get us through. And I'll probably sub, just to bring in a little bit extra. But this is finally my focus and my priority, which is really good.
It is. And what are you getting your master's degree in?
So my master's is just straight history.
What made you pick history instead of like education or something like that?
And a lot of the people that I talked to, when they got their master's in education, they were either going towards like a administration job or something of that nature. And I didn't really want to do that.
Right.
And I know I could imagine being a principal.
Right.
Eventually want to get my PhD in history because I would like to be a professor. And that plan was so, that was my mindset from day one. I'm going to get my bachelor's. I'm going to teach in high school for however many years it takes me to get my master's and my PhD. Then I'm going to jump to that. I love teaching high school a lot more than I thought I would.
Yeah.
So that decision, that thought process is definitely clouded a little bit because it was so cut and dry. And now I'm like, okay, I really enjoy what I'm doing. I really enjoy being here. Can I make the jump to college?
So you've taken a couple classes. You're about to get back into it. Do you have any tips for anybody, just based on what you know is coming, for getting their MA in history?
I would say the major tip that I have is don't bite off more than you can chew. Like I said, I had the false starts with the degree where I got a couple classes in and ended up being too much when I started my first year full time. Looking back, I should have never scheduled classes for my first year of teaching and tried to balance the two, especially online master's classes where you're so in charge of your own education.
Yeah.
The professors will say, here's 4 books you need.
Mm-hmm.
We'll post your assignments every week. Good luck.
Yep.
And you get so caught up, and by the time you get done with your stuff for work, it's 10 o'clock at night, and the last thing you want to do is analyze some random history book and write a paper about it.
Yep.
So that part was extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And if you just wait until you're at the point where you have a couple years in and you can have your curriculum set, and I mean, as well as I do, when you're a teacher, you're always tweaking things and you're always changing things, but you have that base idea of what you're going to do set.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're making everything the night before and coming in the next day and making copies at 6 a.m.
Yep.
That would be a little better. If I was still teaching full time next year, I would still schedule the classes. I wouldn't schedule as many.
Mm-hmm.
I doubled up for the semester since I'm not going to be doing anything else.
Right.
But I would still, be able to handle that a little better than I was last year. Back to the tip, I would say just make sure that you can handle it. Don't feel like you're in a rush. And if you're watching this and you're still in college or you're just starting college and you want to be a teacher, see if your university offers like a 5-year program where you take an extra class here and there, and then you can get the master's degree after 5 years. My college, Slippery Rock, offered something like that I didn't know about until I graduated. So, just explore all your options, talk to your advisor. If you really know you want to get that master's degree, see if there's something like that you can do.
All right, Frank, I'm so excited I got to talk to you. I loved hearing about your move and what you're about to do. And you guys, if you want to check out more of what he's doing this coming fall with his master's in history, you can follow him at Home Run History. I'll leave the link right down here. So thank you, Frank, for being on here.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed this. It was great to talk to you. The Instagram community has been great. And I really look forward to working with you, and everyone else who sees this, feel free to comment something, ask questions, and it's been a great gateway to finding more resources and finding more people.
Yes, always. All right, guys, I will see you in my next video. Thank you again. This was fun.